Hi, everybody, and this is Burke Lyle Sports Talk. Good afternoon. It is about 12 noon here on the East Coast, and today I'm going to talk about last night's NFL draft. So, kind of a rundown. We kind of go rapid fire through the first round. We'll do most picks, not all. And then we'll talk about notable players that I might have thought could have been drafted in the first round, or could certainly be drafted in the early second round. The second round is not a mock draft. I don't even think I'll do that much guessing of where it'll go. I'll kind of just talk about notable players that weren't drafted. So let's go rapid fire, and some picks will go into more detail than others. So Joe Burrow, number one to the Bengals. That was not a surprise. This has been a talk for months on end. In fact, all the mock drafts I saw, or almost all of them, said Burrow to the Bengals. I don't think there are any others. Maybe at some point, maybe when the Bengals got really bad last year, maybe in November, you said Tua, but I don't know. But it's Joe Burrow. He's from Ohio. And look, a year ago, Burrow, I mean, maybe he thought he was an NFL quarterback. Maybe he'll get drafted, but just how he has risen and being the quarterback at LSU, putting up against huge numbers against the SEC, against schools like Alabama, and then continuing it in the playoffs and ultimately the national championship. Burrow had, I think, threw for 56 touchdowns, threw for well over 5,000 yards. Going back to Ohio, and look, this is a Bengals franchise where they've had some good eras for sure. They could have won a couple Super Bowls in the 80s, yet they ran into Montana's 49ers. They were bad for a long time. You had kind of the Carson Palmer era where they had those moments, yet they couldn't win a playoff game. And then even with Andy Dalton, A.J. Green, those led Bengals teams under Marvin Lewis. They had some really good teams, including 2015. Yet they haven't won a playoff game in 30 years. That will likely change with Joe Burrow within the coming years. And now this is a franchise that's also never won a Super Bowl that's been around for about 50 years. That may change too. With Joe Burrow, people in Ohio are really excited. I think they made the right pick. Unless anything goes wrong, I think the Bengals will be in the playoffs in a few years. Even if they have even if they have a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and the question is, do they win Super Bowls under Burrow? And that is hard to say. That is hard to say right there. But again, I like the pick that they made. Second pick, Chase Young to Washington. I'm gonna be honest. I waited all day for that draft pick, and even right before the draft, I had some of those Tua thoughts, and it really all kind of started. And I was about 99% sure it would be Chase Young. Even last Friday, I said I was convinced. Yet there was still some of the Tua buzz going on. And what I think is with Chase Young is they got the edge rusher that they need. And again, think about the line. They've invested in the first round a lot on defensive line the last 3 years. They are heavily invested in that defensive line. And they could have drafted a lineman. I mean, they're the best lineman available to get him. I mean, they could have gotten a wide receiver for sure with that second pick, or traded down maybe to Miami or someone like that to get a wide receiver to help Dwayne Haskins. But instead, they went all in on Chase Young since they knew he's that valuable, and their defense still struggled. And look, this team and this Redskins team has a long ways to go. You still you have yet to deal with that Trent Williams situation. Who is your second best receiver other than Terry McLaurin? Who are your tight ends? Your line is yet to be complete. The defense is not anywhere near complete. There's a reason why this team was 3-13 last year. They have a long ways to go. They're not even close to being there. But this year and next year should be progress. The question is, you hope Dwayne Haskins is better, performs better, and takes steps. Since again, you have a new coach in Ron Rivera. There's excitement around this organization, something that there's not been in a long time. Probably the best excitement around this organization since RG3, or maybe since 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. But certainly since RG3, this is kind of a new era, a new coach. And I read about this in the Washington Post. And this is talking about Chase Young. And so Jack Del Rio, I read about this yesterday, went to Carolina, was the defensive coordinator there under John Fox, and really developed Julius Peppers into an all-time great pass rusher. Then he became defensive coordinator John Fox in Denver. Von Miller became one of the elite pass rushers ever, and certainly of that era when the Broncos were at their height. That landed him a job in Oakland. In came Khalil Mack, and he developed Khalil Mack into an elite pass rusher who became one of the best pass rushers of this era. So again, those are 3 examples. Those are 3 potential Hall of Fame caliber players. And all of a sudden now you have Chase Young, this 4th player, and you're under Ron Rivera, and you're under, say, Jack Del Rio, just talking about his resume. So again, I think he has a really good coaching situation around him. And this is the first building block of building a winning franchise in Washington. Now, the Super Bowl, you can't talk about the Super Bowl yet. First, you just need to get better. Then you need to, the question is, are you a playoff team? And the question is, how long will it take for the Redskins to go from where they are now, from 3-13 to a 13-3 caliber team that's a Super Bowl contender? I don't know. But they're, for the first time in a long time, there's hope in Washington. We've yet to see Chase Young play an NFL game, but there's excitement. This is the pick. Chase Young wants to be here, being from the area. That's what we thought was going to happen, and that is what it is. So this is Chase Young coming to Washington. Again, I did 2 extended videos. One right before March 1st. I did another one last Friday where I talked about Chase Young. This is a national sports story. This is the biggest story in DC sports right now. Again, there are no Capitals, Penguins 4.0, 4 times 5 years. There are no Nationals right now. This is the news that they are talking about. DC is excited right now. And we'll see what happens. Thinking of all these picks, there we'll see. You don't know anything right now until really after a number of weeks, a year, and multiple years. So, Jeff Okudah, the Lions. I have seen that pretty much in almost every mock draft. Maybe if Chase Young or the Redskins having to trade that pick, you could have seen Chase Young going to Detroit or wherever, or maybe a lineman. Okay. So you trade away Darius Slay to Philly since you thought he was declining. Again, you're saving money there. It's kind of like what Tampa did. We'll get to that. So you bring in this cornerback, best cornerback in this draft class, without question. And obviously maybe that helps your pass defense significantly, a major weakness of this team. Now, again, you have Matt Stafford coming back from injuries. This was a very bad Lions team. How good is this Lions team going to be? Since, again, they have struggled with mediocrity through much of Stafford's term. Sure, they've had playoff teams, so the question is, how close is this Lions team? You have the Vikings who went to the playoffs last year. The Packers were 13-3. What direction are the Bears going? Just 2 years ago, they're 12-4. Took a step back. So where are the Lions? Obviously, defense is better. Question is, how much of an impact does this make? Who do we see Okudah guarding come week 1? Does he guard a Devontae Adams right away? Adam Thielen right away? Talking about when they might play teams down the road throughout the NFC and throughout the NFL. How quickly is he guarding number 1 cornerbacks? How quickly is he like Jalen Ramsey, where he makes immediate impact, where he's an all-pro corner pretty much by year 2 or 3, and do the Lions potentially take that Jaguars rise? I mean, we'll see. But so far, this is what they need. This is what they got. Andrew Thomas to the Giants at 4. Hold on, I might have to sneeze again. Allergies. Andrew Thomas, number 4. Okay. So if Andrew Thomas, you could make an argument, was the best tackle in the draft. With the Giants, I thought they were getting an Isaiah Simmons type player. That's what I thought for sure, since, again, he could have really helped that Giants defense. That's a weakness. He could have really made it into impact. Right now, the Giants have been focused on offense. They've gone with Saquon. They've gone with Daniel Jones. And now in comes Andrew Thomas. So, again, this Giants team, they've been bad for 3 years, but it shows why they have picked. I think why they've picked 2, 6, and 4. This is 3 bad years of football. So now you bring in Andrew Thomas. You're protecting Daniel Jones. You expect Daniel Jones to take steps forward in year 2. You know how great Saquon is. You still have major weaknesses on defense. That has yet to be addressed, and the question is, how much do the Giants address the defense in rounds, say, throughout the rest of the draft? But this Giants team, like with the Redskins, sure, they have some pieces to build on the future, but they have a long ways to go in this division. I mean, again, you have teams like the Eagles and Cowboys who have have had very high expectations the last couple of years. The Eagles won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. The Cowboys have been expected to do the same ever since they had their peak year in 2016. They have battled for the division the last 3 years. The Redskins and Giants have really been irrelevant. The question is, with each team, especially the Giants having high picks the last 3 years, which of these teams takes the step forward first? Since, again, you're going to have to face the Eagles and Cowboys. Which of these teams, which of their quarterbacks is better? Which of their teams around them get better first? Since one of these teams is going to get good and possibly surpass a Cowboys or an Eagles. And one of these is going to have to do it, may be in a cycle of being bad for a long time, like the Cleveland Browns have been, or like what the Bengals were for a lot of their franchise history. So again, Daniel Jones is protected right now. The offense should be better. They each have protection. But again, like the Redskins, you made that pick. You make one side of your ball significantly better, but there's still a lot of holes. Still, each organization has a long way to go. Tua to Miami. So this was an interesting mock draft. That's what it seemed like. It seemed like it would either be Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa or Tua, either at 5 or 6. It seemed like 50-50. And the Dolphins for a long time, I mean, you saw the saying, tank for Tua, since again, a year going into the season, you thought Tua would be the number 1 pick overall, since obviously Joe Burrow was unknown. Now, all of a sudden, you still managed to get Tua, and you have a bunch of other resources in this draft. So again, the biggest question with Tua is we know he could be a really good quarterback. How healthy is he? That's the biggest thing. Since again, he has had injuries throughout his career. He's had a lot of minor injuries that might have looked severe at first, and he has played through injuries, and then he had that terrible hip injury. He has been, and the question is, will he be ready to go come opening day? Will Fitzpatrick start? Will Tua rest a year? I don't know, but the biggest question right now is his health. And even if he is healthy right now, what about down the road? You had these injuries in college. Do these continue, or was that just a concern? Since if Tua has an injury-plagued career, he could be one of the biggest what-if questions of the draft. But again, taking Tua over Herbert, Tua is a lot more talented than Justin Herbert. And granted, I'm going to be biased here. I watch a lot more SEC football and Pac-12 football, so I know a lot more about Tua than, say, Justin Herbert. But this is the decision that this Dolphins franchise has made, their franchise quarterback. And again, is this their best quarterback since Dan Marino, since they have had a carousel? And remember, Ryan Tannehill did not work out for this organization. This is now Tua's team. Question is he ready to go? And again, think about this division. So the question is, where are the Jets, where are the Bills going? The Patriots, for the first time in a long time, it is not 100% clear that this is their division. Is it possible that the Patriots start to fall? That come 2021, the Dolphins are all ready to go, and maybe they're the team of the 2020s in the division? We'll see. We'll see. And where the Dolphins go largely depends on the health of Tua. If he's on the field, he's going to be really good, and the team will be good. If he's not, then this franchise is set back. So it really all depends on the health of Tua. Justin Herbert, so what I've heard is he definitely has some weaknesses, but his biggest thing has a fair amount of weaknesses, but his biggest strength is arm strength, right? So this is clearly the third best quarterback in this draft. And you heard a lot of reports of the Dolphins getting Herbert one way or another, whether he fell or not. Well, he did not. And right now, it seems like the Chargers are committed on Tyrod Taylor. Maybe he needs a year to learn the system before he's an NFL quarterback. But I think, of all the picks in this draft so far, on the first 6 picks, I think Herbert will be the worst of the 3. That is my take right now. And I could be wrong. But I think Burrow's going to be really good. And the Bengals will be really good. I think the Dolphins will be good. I think they'll win multiple division titles. The question is, how far can they go? Now, if Herbert and the Chargers, obviously, looking at their current situations, you're in the same division as the Chiefs. I think they'll be dominant for years to come. It will be hard to dethrone them, as they just won the Super Bowl. You have the rise of the Vegas Raiders. And then who knows with the Broncos. So again, the Chargers can be anywhere from the second best team in the division to the 4th best. The question is, how good is Herbert? And I think Herbert is going to be okay. I think he'll have some good moments, but ultimately, he's going to be the worst of the 3. I think maybe he'll start in a playoff game or 2. Maybe he'll be okay. But I think that like with Manning and Leaf. I think that the Chargers are going to wish they could have had Tua. And Herbert is going to be, if I had to say, Tua and Burrow are Hall of Fame caliber players. I'm going to say Herbert could be a Joe Flacco type player. The question is, how good is the team around him? And again, I think he does have a talented team around him. I mean, again, just 2 years ago, the Chargers won 12 games and were one of the better teams in the NFL. It just happened to be in the same division as the Chiefs. So, question is, team around him's good. How quickly does Herbert learn? How quickly is he ready to go? Since, again, he has a lot to learn despite staying 4 years. Panthers getting Derek Brown. I thought they'd get Isaiah Simmons. I really did. They did not. So you have a defensive tackle. Again, this Panthers defense has been as bad as it's been in a long time. This is somebody that's going to help with the run defense. Does not get a lot of sacks. So did they make the right pick? I think they made a mistake there. I think they should have gone after Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons to the Cardinals. Okay, so this Cardinals organization, I thought they were going to go with offensive linemen. I really did. To protect Kyler Murray. But they chose not to. Instead, they decided to go with Isaiah Simmons. So again, they make that defense a lot better. So again, so you have Kyler Murray. I feel like you have a direction in your offense. You have pieces on defense for sure, but you got a long ways to go. The Cardinals are a little ways away. But bringing in Isaiah Simmons, is it possible both sides of the ball could be good and the Cardinals could compete in the West this year? I mean, the 49ers took a big step forward last year. Could they be last year's version? Could they possibly be the 7th team into the playoffs this year? I think they will. I think the Cardinals will make progress this year. Bringing in Isaiah Simmons, I already thought they were a borderline playoff team. They're going to compete for that 7th spot this year, perhaps higher. And with Isaiah Simmons, what I've heard is he's very fast, can play linebacker. They say he's a linebacker, can play edge, can play corner, and can play safety. So basically every position you can think of. He plays defense. And I was reading Pro Football Focus. There's no comparison. Is there ever a player like Isaiah Simmons? I don't know. And does he start a trend? Is he the next great defensive player in this league? I mean, does he guard really good receivers at times? At least in the slot. Does he then play safety? Does he then get sacked? He got 8 sacks last year in college. So what type of player is Isaiah Simmons? We're waiting to see what he is. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing him on the field. When I'm watching the Cardinals defense, I'm going to look out whatever number he's going to be next year. I'm going to be watching out for Isaiah Simmons, since this is going to really transform the Cardinals on defense. And now you have 2 of the most exciting players on. You had an offense last year with Kyler Murray. You have it on defense this year. This Cardinals organization, a year ago, they had no idea where they were going. Now, all of a sudden, they could be headed into the right direction. And they have a strong division to compete with. Remember, the Rams went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The 49ers did last year. Oh, not to mention the Seattle Seahawks, who appear to be back with Russell Wilson. So again, this division is going to be clashes. Some of these years, these powerful teams are going to miss the playoffs. But I wouldn't be surprised from the 2020s, the NFC West won the most Super Bowls. So we'll see there. C.J. Henderson to the Jaguars. So with Henderson, the second best corner in this draft, I figured he was going to Jacksonville, whether it was the 20th pick, whether it was the 9th pick. I heard rumors of him possibly going to Atlanta. This is the second best cornerback in this draft class. Going to Jacksonville. Remember, they traded Jalen Ramsey. This is kind of their first draft pick in the post-Ramsey era. They have gotten their cornerback, a replacement to Ramsey, and still, this team has a lot of work to do. They're still, how good is Gardner Minshew really? What is Leonard Fournette's future in this organization? This team has a ways to go. And when do they rebuild their defense to what it was, say, 3 years ago? Again, this team has a lot of potential issues right now, but you had the cornerback, second best cornerback in this draft. Probably not as good as Okudah is. I don't know if there's ever no cornerback is. But the Jaguars have at least made the stepping stone replacing Ramsey. Is he going to be as good as Jalen Ramsey? I don't think so. I don't think many cornerbacks are as good as Jalen Ramsey. But can he be close to that? Can they have a solid long-term corner? And that's what the Jaguars think. So Dredrick Wells going to Alabama. I heard a lot of talks from Alabama going to the Browns. I heard a lot of talks to the Browns getting an offensive lineman. And that is what they have officially done. So again, right now, you have Odell Beckham. You have Jarvis Landry. You have Nick Chubb, you have Baker Mayfield. Now, it's all about protecting Baker Mayfield. It's about building up this offense, and this is what they've done. They have gone with the second best tackle in this draft. Again, a very strong offensive line class. So you have all of a sudden the Browns had a lot of hype last year, and they have been one of the more disappointing teams in the league this year. If Baker's better protected and he has all this supporting cast around him, I mean, it probably can't get much better than what they have right now. How good is this Browns team? This is, again, the Steelers, we don't know where they are. And with the Bengals, I think they still have work to do with Joe Burrow, obviously. They're 2-14 last year. They're not going to be good overnight, at least I don't think. So the question is now, this is an opportunity for the Browns to compete for this wild card, and I think they can. I think they're in a similar situation as the Cardinals. You have Baker protected. Now it's on Baker to really, in year 3, to really emerge. Since he's shown flashes, but he's also shown struggles. This is the year that Baker really takes over. So this is Louisville and the New York Jets. So again, Sam Darnold needs protection, and I heard a lot of talks of wide receivers, like Jerry Jeudy, like Henry Ruggs, or even CeeDee Lamb. Now all of a sudden, this is now, you're getting that lineman from Louisville, Mekhi Becton, who is really good at, or is really one of the largest linemen in this draft class. Kind of raw in some ways, did not start playing football until his high school years. So now all of a sudden you bring in protection for Sam Darnold. That's the most important thing. And Le'Veon Bell really struggled last year in his first year in New York. Does Le'Veon Bell get much better? Does Darnold get better? Is this offense really a lot better with just that one pick? And is this really the type of draft where the Jets improve and compete for the East? I mean, again, someone like Adam Gase, this is a huge year 2 for him. If things don't go well, I think he'll get fired. And this is the type of pick that could save Adam Gase from getting fired and potentially not only we can contend for the playoffs, potentially making the playoffs. And that's on the pressure on the Jets right now. So Henry Ruggs from Alabama, what I've heard, very fast, 4.27 time. You bring in somebody to this organization from Alabama. You bring them to the Raiders, and again, this Raiders team took steps forward. They're a surprise team last year. They showed flashes at times. It might have looked like possibly a playoff contender. They were right there with the Chiefs for a while before the Chiefs just got hot and won the Super Bowl. The Raiders slowed down. You all of a sudden have this speed receiver. Does he make drastic improvements? Does he make Derek Carr this much better? There's been talk of trying to get rid of him. There's talks of the Raiders even getting a quarterback. The question is, what is Ruggs like in the NFL? Is he a Tyreek Hill like? Or you could say worst case scenario, guys like Darius Hayward-Bay or John Ross, who really did not live up to their speed. So what type of player is Henry Ruggs? Does this pick work? His speed is a big plus. The question is, what happens when we see him on the field? So Tristan Wirfs going from Iowa. In fact, Tampa wanted to be sure that they'd get that tackle, so they traded up to 13th. Again, this is all about Tom Brady. You brought in Brady, you brought in Gronk, you have Chris Goodwin, Mike Evans. This is about winning right now. Since you have a 2-year window, maybe 3-year, you have a 2-year window with Tom Brady. So the question is, how good is Brady for 2 years in Tampa? And bringing that lineman for help, Brady needs lineman protection. This is what they had to do in order to win now. And the Bucs right now, they have a very short window to try to be relevant, to try to win a Super Bowl. Since when Brady's gone, who is your quarterback? And that's why they may draft a quarterback later in the draft. But again, this is what you needed to protect Brady to try to extend your run. So Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina ends up going to the San Francisco 49ers. So with the 49ers, it's funny, you trade DeForest Buckner to the Colts for that pick. And my first thoughts are, okay, they're going to draft a receiver since you need that open after Emmanuel Sanders left to complement Deebo Samuel. Well, that is not what happened. Instead, you drafted a lineman, defensive lineman, huge strength. I mean, remember that team that last year. The reason why they did that is because of linemen. They chose to pay Eric Armstead instead. They would have had to pay DeForest Buckner, so they would have had to let him go anyway. So instead, you bring in that replacement to this line, and the question is, how quickly does he contribute? Because again, they did a loss. They are saving money right now, and they're going to use it on other pieces right now. So again, looks good right now. When does this work? So Denver. Okay, so you already have Portland Sutton. You bring in that compliment, and that is Jerry Jeudy coming in to this organization, possibly the most talented player in this draft class, who I thought might go potentially in the top 10. All of a sudden, middle first round, you're in Denver. Drew Lock has had some good moments down the stretch. His Broncos team appears to be on the rise. You know, they've kind of been struggled with mediocrity ever since they won the Super Bowl. That was 4 years ago. You have 4 years out of the playoffs. Good news, Broncos. There's an extra wild card this year. 7 teams. They only have to be kind of they might be mediocre again, yet they can make it to the playoffs. And Jerry Jeudy improves this offense. So next year, I think the offense will be really good if Drew Lock can carry over. There's momentum in Denver right now by getting who I think is the best receiver in this draft. So Terrell going to Atlanta. So it's from Clemson. You know, I think what I've heard is he's been inconsistent in college, had his moments in Clemson, but then one national championship game had a pick six. The other one really got beat by Joe Burrow's LSU Tigers. The Falcons, after trading Desmond Trufant, they need help on the secondary. That has been a weakness for them for the past couple of years. And the Falcons really is a huge year for Dan Quinn, who, again, we thought for sure was going to get fired last year. This team was 1-7, played 6-2 down the stretch. What version are they? Are they a team that gets their coach fired, or are they a team that is a playoff caliber team that is trying to be what they were in 2016 or even 2017? What direction is this Falcons team going in? And right now, you have a cornerback that all of a sudden may be your best cornerback right now. And there's a lot of pressure on Dan Quinn to win now. And this is the pick the Falcons thought they needed to make to improve their team and really make it to the playoffs. And a make or break Dan Quinn year. CeeDee Lamb to the Dallas Cowboys. Now this is fascinating. You already have Amari Cooper, who you spent $100 million on. Then you have Michael Gallup, who in year 2 had 1,100 receiving yards. You bring in CeeDee Lamb who has 5 years, who could play for this team for 5 years. All that you have yet to do is pay Dak Prescott. This is a Cowboys team that drastically underachieved like any team I ever have. They look so talented on paper. They look like a team that could really win the Super Bowl. And again, offense was already your strength. They could have drafted a cornerback after they let Byron Jones go to Miami, but they did not. Instead, they chose to draft a wide receiver. And Lamb, you can make an argument, probably, in my opinion, the second best receiver in this draft class, is all of a sudden in there now. With Cooper and Gallup, the Cowboys' offense is going to be really good next year. And with this team, the Cowboys, we know what their talent is. We know what they are on paper. The question is, was last year a fluke? Will there be any excuse for underachieving again this year? What they need to do now is they need to pay Dak Prescott so they can be assured for the next 3 years, or really 2 since Gallup was a second-round pick, of potentially Lamb, Gallup, and Cooper. Certainly Lamb and Cooper for the next 5 years. This is the pick they made. I like that pick right now. Now, could I be wrong? Of course. But this Cowboys team is going all in on offense right now. Okay, so now Austin Jackson, he's a defensive tackle, or offensive tackle, excuse me, from USC. Went to the Dolphins. You know what this pick is? He's brought in to protect Tua. He's the 5th best tackle in this draft in a very strong draft class. So the Dolphins are going all in on offense. They spent a lot of money on defense in the offseason. This is their guy to protect Tua. And this Dolphins team, all of a sudden, looks a lot better than they did 6 weeks ago, and certainly at the beginning of last season. So here's one of the shocking picks of the draft. So this is Damon Arnett, a cornerback, went 19th to the Raiders. So the Raiders, they got a cornerback. But what I think when I was reading about him, I thought he was going to be second or third round pick. I thought he'd be drafted tonight. Instead, first round pick. He probably went higher than anybody ever expected. Which, again, I think is the surprise of this draft class. A major surprise. I was not expecting that. I thought, again, would not go this high. So, again, the Raiders made a bold decision. So, again, the reason why he's a second or third round pick is his raw skills are not as good as, say, what Okudah is or what C.J. Henderson is. Instead, seems to be more second, third round. I mean, again, second round caliber picks like Cyrus Jones going to New England. He did not flame out at all as a cornerback. He was not a cornerback at all. Never really got on the field that much, right? That's just one example of a kind of corner. I'm just using an example. There have been many other corners that have flopped, right? Second round corners that didn't last very long. Well, if this is a second or third round talent coming in the first round, this Raiders team is very bold with their picks. Since, again, number one, I think that showed that they really wanted him, since they thought before they'd pick in the second round, what they thought is he's going to go beforehand. They thought he'd go late in the first round or early in the second round. So they really wanted him. They decided to get him. So they think that's their corner of the future. Okay, so you already got someone like Ruggs. Now you have a corner. So you address both ends. One of the most important parts of your offense, of your defense. So again, the Raiders are high on him. Very bold pick. There's a reason why people thought he would go in the second or third round. Again, there are plenty of other corners available in this second round, which I will talk about on the list of players not drafted. But what they thought, and maybe playing with Okudah, they really got a lot. They really liked him. They saw a lot of what they liked. Here's what I think. I think they really wanted him. That's why they took him so much earlier. This is definitely the surprise of the draft. K'Lavon Chaisson is an edge rusher going to the Jaguars. So with him, it's kind of interesting. So kind of a raw player. Never really dominated in college. Is not anywhere close to that Chase Young type. At least right now. But this is probably the second best edge rusher in this draft class. I thought might go in the second round. Instead, we went to Jacksonville. So they got that edge rusher. Something that was their big strength 3 years ago. And I've heard with Yannick Ngakoue, he wants to get out of there, which that probably will happen. This maybe his last year there, or could be traded come training camp. Who knows? But this is their potential long-term replacement. And again, do you get 5 good years out of him, or certainly however many it takes? Right? Obviously, Dante Fowler didn't pan out, and Jacksonville's now an Atlanta Falcon after going to the Rams. Okay, so but again, this is someone who kind of came on late in the year. So again, late in the playoffs may have improved his draft stock. It's never really been that dominant. Sure, when you're in the biggest spotlight, when you make all the plays, when everybody's watching, that probably got that got a lot of people's attention. So what type of player is he? I don't know. I think he's raw. I think he's got a ways to go. But this Jaguars team, they don't seem ready to win right now. I mean, who are their coaches? What is their front office? Where is this Jaguars team going? I talked about them at length last week. I don't know. So this is the pick they made. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Reagor from TCU. So I thought might go to the tail end of the first round, maybe slip in the second. So comes out of TCU. So again, is clearly the fourth best receiver in this draft class. A very, very strong receiver draft class. One of the best, deepest receiver draft classes we have ever seen. And obviously a Justin Jefferson, who they could have gotten. So what they need in a receiver, and they know a lot more about this guy than I do. They know a lot more about him than I do if they chose to draft him. But again, last year we saw down the stretch with the Eagles, Alshon Jeffrey was hurt. Deshaun Jackson missed all the years. So you know their best receiver was? Greg Ward, who really wasn't really an NFL receiver. That was their best receiver down the stretch. There's a reason why the Eagles struggled to make it to the playoffs last year, and were really, certainly from Eagles fans, just happy to be there. And could they? And if Wentz didn't get hurt, how would they have done the playoffs? It's hard to say. Would they have beaten the Seahawks? Maybe. I don't know. But this Eagles team, you bring Wentz that help right now. You have a first-round receiver to pair with Alshon Jeffrey and a Zach Ertz. This team should be better now. So what happened the last 2 years? Can they get rid of that? Can they finally go back to what they were as a Super Bowl caliber team? And it doesn't mean they have to go 13-3 and win as MVP. But what this does mean is, can they be, say, 11-5 type team, and certainly be a wild card, certainly make it to the playoffs without much worry, and like they did the last couple of years, not have to get hot at the end of the year to make it to the playoffs. And you need Wentz to stay healthy. When he finally got to play in a playoff game, he got hurt with a concussion. This is a big year for the Eagles. All right, they won a Super Bowl, but that was 3 years ago. They have a good long window with Carson Wentz now. This is year 5 for him. They've paid him a lot of money. He has his help now. And this Eagles team really has urgency, similar to what the Cowboys were, both drafting wide receivers. Justin Jefferson from LSU, so again, put up huge numbers in college last year. Under Joe Burrow, his numbers went up. His stock obviously skyrocketed. So again, you have Justin Jefferson, who's going to the Vikings, who traded Stephon Diggs. So they got the pick from the Bills, from where the Bills would have picked. So now all of a sudden you have that replacement for Diggs, who they committed a lot of money to, and they got rid of. Whoever it was, just his relationship with the organization, my guessing, probably wasn't good enough. So now, all of a sudden, you have Justin Jefferson, you bring him, you compliment to Kirk Cousins, and again, like with what the Eagles did, and like with what the Vikings are doing right now, losing the divisional round, there is pressure for these guys to step up. Since again, they are brought into organizations, to playoff teams that have high expectations. The Eagles have had high expectations ever since they won that Super Bowl, to kind of come close to that level again and win another Super Bowl. The Vikings have high expectations. They've had that really for the last, this organization, probably 4 or 5 years. So these receivers like Justin Jefferson, I think, is expected to contribute pretty quickly. Since that's what Kirk Cousins needs, this is what this organization needs. So there's pressure on him, more pressure than, say, and all these receivers have pressure, but there might be more pressure in someone like this than, say, I don't know, a receiver that might go in the top 10 or wherever. So Kenneth Murray, the Chargers did a trade. They traded, the Patriots had that pick. I thought they might go with a quarterback or something like that. They went with a linebacker, Kenneth Murray, who you can make an argument is the best linebacker in this class, or second best. Simmons is clearly number 1, maybe the best pure linebacker, someone who plays linebacker all the time. So it's Kenneth Murray. So you bring him in. What I've heard is he's athletic. Sure, he has a few weaknesses. I think most players do coming into the draft. The question is, do the strengths outweigh the weaknesses? And this is already a talented Chargers team. You bring in that linebacker, someone to lead the defense. You brought in Justin Herbert. The question is, where is this team going? How good is this Chargers team? How quickly does he contribute to this defense? The Chargers traded up to make sure they had that linebacker that they wanted. They really wanted this player, so they have high expectations for him. And the question is, what is this Chargers team in 2020? So Cesar Ruiz, best center in this draft class. I heard reports of him possibly going in the second round. So he's a center. Okay, so the Saints team, I think they already have had a good line for the most part. I think they've had one of the better lines in the NFL. But you bring in a young lineman who, after Max Unger retired, I think they're trying to get this young center to obviously protect Drew Brees at the twilight of his career, with his team trying to win a Super Bowl, which his team has come very close the last 3 years. What if they beat Minnesota 2 years ago? Who knows if they going to beat the Eagles? What if would they have beaten the Patriots? Who knows? A lot of what ifs. And certainly last year I thought they'd win a Super Bowl. So now all of a sudden there's pressure. The Saints have had 3 years to win a Super Bowl. They haven't done that yet. Their window is getting shorter with Brees, obviously. So this is somebody to protect Brees. This is the center, to kind of protect the middle, and maybe also is good in run blocking defense as well. So now, all of a sudden, now the 49ers with the 25th pick. So you draft a wide receiver from Arizona State, Brandon Ayuk. So what this means is so the 49ers, we thought they were going to take a receiver. I thought they'd get someone from the Lamb, Ruggs, or even Judy class. That did not happen. Instead, what they did is they decided to wait by getting that defensive tackle to kind of keep going what they already had. Instead, you bring in that two receiver and again, obviously this guy's not as talented, or we don't think is as talented as a Lamb or Ruggs or even probably Judy Lamb Ruggs. But again, this is what they have needed to kind of keep that going. Brings in a number two receiver, and remember Dabble Sweeney, or Samuel, excuse me. That's the name of the Clemson coach, or Debo Samuel, kind of similar names. So Debo Samuel, who was brought in, really contributed right away, and we saw him contribute in the playoffs all the way until the Super Bowl. All of a sudden, you have this other receiver to complement. And does he have his struggles right away? Sure, he could. He could be a disappointment. But again, this is what the 49ers, this is what their priorities were. Number one, keeping that defensive line strong. Number two, receiver. So this is what they did. They could have gotten a better receiver, obviously, but they chose not to. And this is what they're with right now. So they kind of did. So again, if you're a 49ers fan, I kind of wanted them to get a talented wide receiver first. That's what I really thought they were going to do. I thought I was going to hear the name of CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy. Instead, I heard the name of, let me go back and see what it is, Javon Kinlaw. So that's the name I heard instead. So again, they're going for a receiver. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, in most years, you're the sixth best receiver in this draft class, or seventh or eighth, whatever it might be. There's plenty more receivers to come. This is a very deep class. So how good is he really? So here's probably the second shocking thing of the draft. The Green Bay Packers, who I thought would get a receiver along the lines of whoever was drafted right now, maybe towards the end of the first round, I thought they'd get a receiver. I thought they'd get Aaron Rodgers' help. They did not. Instead, you draft Jordan Love, who may be probably the fourth best quarterback in this draft class. Who knows how good he is? He's very raw. How talented is he really? Sure, his stock has, and his numbers plummeted last year. He got way worse in a kind of lower level FBS-like program, sort of like what Josh Allen was in Wyoming, for that matter. But again, Love declines. Obviously, his talented, strong arm. Sure, we think he could be. So what this is a project. You're clearly putting him on the bench. So remember, this Packers team went 13-3. Instead, you're talking about a replacement 3 years down the road. Aaron Rodgers reading his contract. He has 2 years left on his contract. But that's with an opt-out. He really has 4. So if Rodgers, who, again, think about these era of quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, dominant into their 40s and can play good football into their 40s, and Brady winning a Super Bowl at age 39 and 41. And all of a sudden you're drafting Jordan Love. So again, if this team was 13-3 and win now mode, you're playing for the future. Right? This is somebody you could have drafted in the second round, but apparently by trading up with Miami, they showed that they really wanted Jordan Love. You know what this reminds me of? Of how good the Patriots were in 2013, drafting Jimmy Garoppolo. And you know what happened? Jimmy G, who thought he might take over in 2014. Right? You thought Brady was done. I've told this story so many times with the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And we all know this story. So then you draft, Jimmy G comes in, and he has opportunity to take over, gets a brief tryout with the Patriots when Brady's suspended. Guess what? The Patriots win the Super Bowl that year. By Halloween, midseason next year, he's traded out. And guess what? The Patriots go to the Super Bowl that year, and then they win another Super Bowl. And guess what? Brady decided he had enough of New England, didn't like the direction they're going in. So now he's in Tampa. Right? So the Patriots, by drafting Jimmy G, they lost both of them, not one of them. If they want to get rid, and again, Bill Belichick wanted to get, and again, I don't mean to kind of go into talking about Bill Belichick and the Patriots, but Bill Belichick wanted Jimmy G to be their quarterback of the future, since he knew Tom Brady's time was coming to an end. But he may have seen stuff that Tom Brady didn't see, and there's a reason why Tom Brady went on to dominate for the most part for the next 5 years and win 3 more Super Bowls. And why Jimmy G is on the 49ers. Of course, is Jordan Love a better player than Jimmy G? I don't know. So again, with Jordan Love, he has a lot to learn. And he's got a long ways to go. He's nowhere near starting. So again, Aaron Rodgers, who could have started in day one if he wanted to, or certainly by year 2. He had 3 years to sit behind Brett Favre, right? You talk about the comparisons, right? That's what they did. And Brett Favre thought, wait a minute, this is my replacement? And is this the case? If Aaron Rodgers is great for the next 4 years, which I think he's more likely to be than Jordan Love starting, and the Packers decide to give him another 2-year extension, is Jordan Love eventually traded away? Is this the same thing with Brady or with Brady and Jimmy G? Is this going to be the exact same thing? Is this going to be 2.0? Since what I see right now is this is either A, number one, Aaron Rodgers is going through the same phase that Brett Favre did 15 years ago, or this is Brady and Jimmy G 2.0, and again, Rodgers is right around the same age that Brady was at the time. Right? Here's another thing. It had been 10 years since they had won a Super Bowl. This year it'll be 10 years since the Packers have won. Right? Do the Packers win multiple more Super Bowls under Aaron Rodgers? They can. They could have and maybe should have won another Super Bowl. And they certainly can right now. I mean, things look way better now than they did a year ago under the Matt LaFleur system. So again, sure, Jordan Love can learn under Matt LaFleur for sure. Yeah, maybe he's in a good system to learn. And then in 3 years from now, do you decide, okay, after Favre in 2007 had one of the best seasons of his career, I mean, he decided to retire. And obviously he was way more beat up than Rodgers was, just playing a different league. I mean, he played in the 90s and the first part of the 2000s. So again, he played in a different era. Rodgers played in the 2010s when the league really started to emphasize safety. So again, Rodgers is not ready to move on. So is this possible? Like, let's say he develops and he's ready to go. Do you then trade him and turn this into a first-round pick later? So again, are you going to be in the same situation that the Patriots were? Why do this now? I mean, is Jordan Love going to sit for 4 years and then play? What's probably going to happen is, knowing Aaron Rodgers, and sure, he's had injury problems throughout his career. He has had injuries. So if an injury happens, like let's say Rodgers gets hurt again, this has happened twice already. Does then Love just come in and be thrown in, have no idea what he's doing? Or if Rodgers, say, plays 3 more years. So whatever happens, what they are hoping is they're thinking about the future already. They're not thinking about now. By getting Rodgers help with a receiver, they're thinking about the future, like what they did earlier. And if this turns into, for whatever long period, let's say he steps in the early 2020s and he plays for 15 years, is it possible that for almost 50 years you have a lead quarterback? Sure. But right now I'm wondering, and unlike Aaron Rodgers, who slipped, should have been number 1 overall at San Francisco. Instead, what this is a quarterback who maybe should be picked in the 2nd round or 3rd round. I saw talks of that. I saw the Patriots drafting him, potentially. So again, maybe he's right around where he should be drafted. But again, very raw, has a long way to go. This is what they are doing. So again, why are they doing this? This is a questionable decision mark. This is one of the shockers of this year's draft. This is one of the surprises of this year's draft. I am surprised by what they're doing. But if what they're doing works, then it works. And there's really not much to talk about. So again, this is something that we won't know the answer to for probably another 3 or 4 years. Okay? This reminds me really more. So again, interesting decision. Questionable. We'll see how it works. So the Seahawks, and I'll probably talk less about this, they drafted Jordan Brooks, a linebacker from Texas Tech. I thought might go 2nd or 3rd round, so higher than I thought. But again, with their defense getting older, maybe like what you did with a linebacker phase, maybe it's before too long, maybe KJ Wright moves on as he's getting older. So maybe this guy is a compliment to Bobby Wagner, and maybe eventually, since the way they play, he seems a lot more like a tackling linebacker. He's not an edge, so again, maybe becomes that lead linebacker of the future. Plays for a while, is that compliment. And the Seahawks trying to build a defense again. I mean, they're still in this phase of building a defense, and with the 27th pick, this is what they have to do. Since again, the Seahawks seem like they know what they are around Russell Wilson again. They had a very quick rebuild. They missed the playoffs 1 year, and all of a sudden they're back to being contenders. So now the question is, what is the defense around them? How does it work? So already they have Shaq Griffin, who at times looked like one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. They brought in Quentin Dunbar from Washington, who at times, according to Pro Football Focus, they're of course, Dunbar had a lot of injuries, were some of the best cornerbacks in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus grade. So again, they feel like they have at least part of a secondary. So they have some pieces. They're building for sure. And they've got, and again, the Seahawks team, they have a ways to go on defense. They're not Legion of Boom. They're not anywhere close to elite level defense. Their defense was at best average last year, if not below average. For sure, if not the bottom fourth, if not the bottom 25%, or whatever it was. But again, this is the Seahawks team that has invested in defense. And if they build a defense on 5th round picks and 2nd round picks, then surely they think a 1st round linebacker can help their defense trying to build and trying to come back from being and trying to build what they were, say, Legion of Boom era defense. So now, next up, with the 28th pick, the Ravens select Patrick Queen, a linebacker. So again, they clearly missed C.J. Mosley last year. Yes, their defense got better down the stretch, but this was a weakness for them. Okay, and I think linebacker, with Ray Lewis, they had him for 17 years, all the way until a Super Bowl title. Then they kind of had a weakness for a while. Then in came C.J. Mosley. He was their guy for 4 years. They couldn't afford to pay him. Took big money to go to the Jets. So instead, you all of a sudden have Patrick Queen, who they hope will be that linebacker. You could say, you could make an argument that he's the 3rd best linebacker in this draft, since Isaiah Simmons was far and away number 1, as I said earlier. So you bring in a linebacker for this team. And how good is he? I don't know. It's hard to say. But again, the Ravens probably think he can start pretty much right away. And can, again, coming from LSU, and can really help the defense, which was already very good last year. They have outstanding secondary. This is one of the weakest spots of the team, is what the Ravens are trying to address. And again, this is a 14-2 team that probably should have won the Super Bowl. I mean, they shouldn't have lost the Titans. They had no business losing the Titans last year. This is a team that is on the rise. They need to show that it's a fluke. And this is a team that could potentially, you see where they're going, could be an elite dynasty. They could win multiple Super Bowls. I mean, the Ravens say they could be one of these elite franchises in the NFL. They've won 2 Super Bowls already in their young history. They could potentially win who knows how many more. They could be up there. But again, it's too early to say. They need playoff success first. And they think this will be their 3rd tie, from Ray Lewis to C.J. Mosley to Patrick Queen. This is their 3rd franchise linebacker. So now this is Isaiah Wilson, offensive tackle, going from Georgia to the Titans. So again, you have Derrick Henry, you have Ryan Tannehill committed to the long term. Henry obviously a 1-year option. Tannehill needs protection, and this Isaiah Wilson, who again, this is probably the 6th best tackle in this draft. Very strong receiver and tackle draft so far. What I've heard is like 6'7" or whatever, 350 something. Very, very large. Now again, from what we think, is not as talented as, say, the other 5 or 4 tackles. Certainly that what you saw going in the top 10, like in that wave. So again, is he raw? Yes, but again, they lost Jake Conklin last year. They're trying to have that replacement level tackle to come in and protect Tannehill and Henry. And how good is he in the NFL? Again, I don't know. I think it's definitely raw from that sense, so we'll see how it works. So the Dolphins, they draft Noah Igbinoghene it's from Auburn. is a cornerback. So again, they're investing a lot of money on the corners right now with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. So this could be their slot cornerbacks. Is it possible that they're already investing in a slot cornerback with their first round pick to try to make sure they have a strong secondary? So the Dolphins really have 3 picks in this draft and they went down to 30th. So again, the Dolphins could be, and again, we don't know what they're like. We'll see what they do with their other round, with their potential second round picks as well, and kind of later in the draft. But I talked at length about Tua. If Tua's ready to go, and I don't think they hit on all their picks. I think it's very most important. They have to hit on. They have to hit on Tua's pick. They absolutely have to. And it would be nice if they hit on that line pick. I mean, Tua, very fragile, right? You don't need him getting hurt again. You need good line. You don't want to risk him getting hurt again in this NFL. I think that it's very important that they hit on that pick too. And this pick, again, they chose to hit a corner. Okay, I think they could have gotten a running back, or whoever, or maybe another receiver. I don't know. But they chose to get a cornerback. Okay, so again, this Dolphins team is very invested in secondary. So the Vikings get Jeff Gladney from TCU. Again, I thought he'd be a second round pick. He comes from TCU. Obviously, he's a cornerback. So what I think is, look, Xavier Rhodes really went from one of the better cornerbacks in the league to then just no longer being a part of the team. They just released him. Secondary went from a major strength, and Trey Waynes is gone too. This is now a major weakness. This team, who their defense was still good last year, times very good, but it was clear they're starting to show weakness. 2017, when they're at their best, when they went to the conference championship game, they had an elite level defense. They had the best defense in the NFL that year. You can make an argument for that. I mean, they were strong all over the ball, right? And they still have a good defensive line. And yes, they still have Harrison Smith, but instead of having really strong on defense all over the place, being a Super Bowl caliber team, instead, they got worse at receiver. They have some question marks once again. I mean, this was a really strong NFC last year, and they were clearly the 6th best team in the NFC of all the playoff teams you saw. I mean, you had that very strong West. Okay, they're better than the Eagles or Cowboys. So they're clearly the 5th best team in the NFC. So it's all the strong teams. It was the Saints, the West, and then you had Green Bay. Now, all of a sudden, this Vikings team, I mean, they have some question marks. And luckily for them, there's an extra playoff spot. So the question is, do they take a step forward and win the North? Or do they take a step backward and fall to 7 or maybe out of the playoffs altogether? I mean, they would have been that 7th team in a year like 2018. So this Vikings team, they have question marks. And they're drafting a corner to fill the shoes of Xavier Rhodes. And can he be better than Xavier Rhodes? Again, young corners, especially drafted this low, can tend to struggle at first. So secondary could still be a weakness for him. But if he's better than Xavier Rhodes, it's just average, that's an upgrade. So the last pick in the first round, we're almost done. We've spent about an average of 2 minutes on picks. Some we just said a few sentences. Others we went on for 5 minutes. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, kind of smaller running back. I saw comp to Ray Rice out of LSU. So again, this Chiefs team, who again, this team won a Super Bowl, obviously. So when you win a Super Bowl, there are not too many weaknesses. I mean, sure, they didn't have all-pro corners. Sure, they didn't have all-pro linebackers. Linebacker was a weakness for them. But whatever they were, with the pieces they used that to win a Super Bowl and go 12-4 and get hot. Right? And that's what the Chiefs did. So you get that. So again, this is the compliment of Mahomes. You have that running back who is better than Damian Williams, who at least they think is better than Damian Williams, who will catch passes, who will get a fair amount of carries. Again, they're trying to find what Kareem Hunt was. They had Kareem Hunt, who you can make an argument was one of the better running backs in the NFL when he was in Kansas City, and obviously we all know how it ended. Right? He's not as big as Kareem Hunt. He's a smaller running back. This is what they're trying to get out of what they didn't have before, that missing piece at running back. And how does this pick work out? We will see. But they are really trying to make Mahomes better. And again, if he's not ready to go, they still have Damian Wilson. This team just won the Super Bowl. So I don't think there's too much to talk about this team. And unlike Super Bowl teams like the Ravens, who faced uncertainty afterwards, or maybe the Giants, of how good were they really? Did they just get hot and that showed? This is a team, or unlike the Patriots, who we knew were at the end of a window each time, each and every year they won a Super Bowl. That 3-year run from 2016 to 2018. Unlike some of these other teams that won a Super Bowl, I think they're more like the Eagles. I think they have long-term potential. And do they step back? I don't know. But this team just won the Super Bowl, and they may have just they may have just made it easier for Mahomes. So now I want to talk about notable players, and I went on for an hour. Which again, would I be doing this if there wasn't the NFL draft? Maybe. Again, this is the first time I've ever really talked a lot about the draft. So now the question is, do I want to do this again next year, despite having Major League Baseball, despite having Stanley Cup playoffs, despite the NBA playoff? Maybe just spend a little time on this, leading up to the draft, in the month leading up to the draft, and then maybe do this again next year. I don't know. So this is according to Dwayne Brugler of The Athletic, who's done a great job. He's written those draft reports, which again, I could never do that. That is not my specialty. Who knows how many hours of film he had to watch to do scouting reports of hundreds of players. I mean, he probably did scouting reports and watched film of goodness who knows how many players, probably 300 plus players, if not more than that, from all sorts of position groups, from guys that will go number 1 overall, from Joe Burrow. Probably watched tons of college football, being a draft expert. I mean, all the draft experts out there, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, Dane Brugler, all the draft experts out there, even guys who do this out of their basement, who hope to be the next Mel Kiper or whatever. I give you credit for watching all this film and making it, for someone like me who just reads scouting reports, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not a college football hardcore. I watch bits and pieces of the season. I'm kind of aware what's going on. I follow along. I watch the playoffs and the national championship game. But so again, so what I'm doing is, look, I'm not an expert. If you want to hear expert analysis, I'm not the person. I'm just giving you kind of opinion. So I made a list of 19 players that number one fell out of the first round, who I thought could be first round picks, who are repeatedly may have been first round picks in mocks, and other players who I think will be drafted tonight in general, like in the second round, maybe even the third round, could benefit. So that first pick, I want to talk about J.K. Dobbins. Went to Ohio State. One of the better running backs in college football. Really came on the scene his freshman year. Put up huge numbers. Not even the best running back in his own conference. I'm about to get to that. I thought might be the first round pick. You can make an argument. It ended up being Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the first running back drafted. I thought could be the first running back drafted. This is not a year where you have Ezekiel Elliott go number 4, or a Saquon Barkley go number 2, or Christian McCaffrey going in the top 10. This is not a strong running back class. I feel like you don't have those generational running backs that can be the type of guys, or even Todd Gurley level, Adrian Peterson, the type of running backs that can, be the type of guys that make Pro Bowls, that make $15 million a year, the type of guys that could be the $100 million standard. This year doesn't appear to be that way. And Dobbins, again, really good college running back. The question is where he goes. And again, where these guys are going, I don't know. I look through the teams. I don't know where they're going. The first round, I think, is where you address your biggest needs. Second round is where you address them. That notable teams that need a running back. I think Kansas City already addressed that. But you want to go down the list of playoff teams. Maybe the Texans, they need a running back. After choosing to pass on Carlos Hyde, letting him go. Maybe one of these guys, Dobbins, Swift, or Taylor, goes to Houston. I don't know. Or goes to other teams. Just, there's plenty of teams that need a running back. I don't know where these guys are going. I'm just I looked through the list. The first round's hard enough to guess. Um, Maybe I should have read more um, mock drafts for the second round today. Maybe I should have done that. I don't know. But again, so a lot of these guys. So again, you have someone like Dobbins, who again could be the first running back pick today. Okay, could go, right. Then you have Josh Jones, a tackle. This is rapid fire. Who came from Houston, 6'5", 319, is raw, is not fully polished yet. I think went full all 4 years. Maybe a team, maybe goes to somewhere like, Miami already got, maybe goes to someone that needs a lineman. Maybe he could really go to Houston. Houston's needed lineman help for years. Then you have someone like Jonathan Taylor, again, put up 2,000 yards pretty much every season, put up huge numbers. If he would have come back to stay, would have broken the all-time NCAA rushing record. Huge numbers in Wisconsin every year. I've seen bits and pieces of the game. I've seen many times where he put up, a 200 rushing yard performance the last 3 years, reading box scores or hearing about it in the news. Again, I think the reason why he fell is he had fumbles. So again, if you're an NFL team and you see the fumbles, think about his fumble rate. What if this costs you games? I mean, what if this costs you games? What if in a crucial playoff game he fumbles and this costs him a Super Bowl or whatever playoff game? Do teams think about that? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Hasn't been drafted. DeAndre Swift, making an argument the best running back in this class. 5'8", 212. And look, I've seen him play pretty much every game of his college career. He catches passes. He's explosive. Going to Georgia. He is never really, so he's kind of fresh. Unlike Jonathan Taylor, who has gotten tons of carries at Wisconsin by putting up 2,000 yards every year. This guy was the third stringer to his freshman year to Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. First round running backs, or second round running backs. And also, as well, shared carries of Elijah Holyfield, who I don't think will have much of an NFL career, doesn't look like it. So again, he has been fresh and then has caught passes out of the backfield. So again, has never had to be that type of running back who is going to rush for 2,000 yards in college by getting massive amounts of carries. So he is fresher than, say, what Dobbins, and certainly what Jonathan Taylor is. So again, where Swift goes, that's interesting to see. Ezra Cleveland, 6'6", 311. Offensive tackle. I heard he's very athletic for offensive tackle. I thought he may go in the first round. Turns out he did not. I think he's the best offensive lineman available right now for teams that may have passed on line help in the first round. I think this is where you go in the second round. AJ Espencia, edge rusher from Iowa. Again, you had Chase Young. It was possible. I thought he might be the second best edge rusher in this draft class. For sure, coming from Iowa, put up big numbers, double-digit sacks last year. Again, for teams that are looking for edge rush help that did not go up in the first round, this is where they go now. As of right now, I think he's better than Chason. Certainly from college production, maybe Chason's better. I heard he's not a great athlete, unlike Chase Young or Chason. He's not a great athlete. It's more of maybe he makes plays, but he's not a great athlete, if you know what I'm saying. Trayvon Diggs, a cornerback, I thought he'd go in the first round. Again, teams that passed on cornerback help in this first round, looking for in the second round. Grant Delpit, safety from LSU. So what I heard is he might be a first-round pick, high first-round pick. What I heard is he's a very good player, makes a lot of plays, but just misses tackles. I think he played hurt last year. That may have affected him. I thought teams looking for safety help, and again, no one has gone after safety help. There's Xavier McKinney as well. 6 foot, 201 pounds. Delpit seems like that athlete. Again, we saw safeties like Jamal Adams go like 6 overall as recently as 2017. If he was healthy, could have he done the same? So again, injuries dropping. I think whoever gets him will be getting a steal in this draft class by getting a safety, whoever that might be. So now quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks: Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm, Jalen Hurts. So Jacob Eason, look, and again, Eason and Fromm, Georgia backgrounds. Jacob Eason actually came to Georgia, five-star recruit, from Washington originally, and his freshman year had his moments for sure. They were a play away. They were 7-5 that year, very down year. First year of the Kirby year, first year of that in a long time, and this is a program that had a long ways to go. Ooh, again, they got way better than expected. I thought, that second year they might be, I don't know, 10-2 caliber team. Okay, they're back, they're better. New Year's Six caliber team, they're only going to get better. Instead, they almost won a national championship. And again, I need to stop talking about Eason right now. But again, he kind of came into that form. Without Eason that year, they might be 5-7. They might not even play in a bowl game at all. And what this football team looked like, there was excitement. Obviously, number one, having a new coach. And Kirby Smart, I think he's one of the best coaches in college football. Certainly from the recruiting aspects, might be number one, or you can make an argument for number one. Obviously, there's Sweeney, Saban, best recruiters. As of right now, I think those are probably number 1, 2, and 3 in terms of getting all overall talent. You can maybe say LSU. They had a lot of talent. I think they're certainly up there. Oklahoma, they're more offensive oriented, but again, so teams like that, complete level teams. So with Eason, came into Georgia. 2017 was their starter. We thought this is their quarterback, since again you have Jake Fromm on the roster, who may be learning, maybe one of those guys that transfers. He gets hurt, and then goes on to Washington, and goes on. So again, what I heard people say is a big arm, but he's slow. He's not really an athlete. He's slow. So basically, big arm quarterback, raw. Could he go somewhere like Tampa or New England? Maybe go to Tampa, learns under Brady for a couple of years. So I think guys like these, Fromm, Hurts, especially Eason and Fromm, I think go to somewhere like New England or Tampa, and they learn for a couple of years. Or maybe somewhere like New Orleans, where you learn, and then you're ready to go when, say, quarterbacks retire. Stuff like that. So if Jake Fromm, what I've heard is his polish seems like a smart quarterback, but he doesn't make big plays. Never had did not play in an air raid offense. He played in a system where, think about it, he had NFL caliber running backs like Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and DeAndre Swift in Athens. So he had running backs he could give the ball to. And again, this is a team that was very dependent on defense, so Fromm was not asked to be the leader. So again, they're not playing air raid offense. Played more of West Coast offense, simple. I don't know about simple. Short passes. Never put up huge numbers. And that's why he was never a Heisman contender. Never put up Joe Burrow numbers or anywhere close to that. Probably put up half of that. So again, was never asked to put up huge numbers. Okay, so is that a weakness? So again, coming to the NFL, is he someone, if he's a starter, who throws for 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, and can maybe start in playoff games? Is this quarterback where you say, oh, right now we need this guy to win a Super Bowl? No, I don't think so, at least right now. Again, I think he's polished, but I think he needs to learn at the same time. Some of both. Since, again, he's coming into a whole new system. So if Fromm took over for Eason, which that's where the story continues, and that first year, going down memory lane, if you're any Georgia fans listening, if you're listening for a whole hour, I mean, this is some of the longest videos I've made in a long time. Great. If you're still listening, that's great. So if you happen to be a Georgia fan that's listening, great. You want to hear this. First college start, beat Notre Dame in his first college start. Came in right there, and again, this was a freshman quarterback stepping into a team that had fired Mark Richt after years of 8-4, 9-3 football, not acceptable in Athens, and it appeared without Eason that this might be the case again. Instead, they got win after win. They just kept winning and kept winning. Their only loss that year in the regular season was to Auburn. Beat Auburn in the SEC Championship. Oklahoma freshman year by beating Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma. New Year's Day of 2018, Rose Bowl. All of a sudden you're in the national championship game and you almost beat Alabama. And then 2018 you're good once again. The only regular season loss is to LSU. You lose to Alabama again. It's that curse. It's just the only thing that's stopping Georgia from a national championship is Alabama. And then the next year, you're good once again. You lose to South Carolina. And then you lose to LSU in the title game. It's far more superior than what Alabama was. And then you win the Sugar Bowl. So again, obviously the last 3 years have been the most successful era in Georgia football since the days of Herschel Walker. Almost winning a national championship, to then being national title contenders. You just couldn't beat that Alabama or LSU team those 3 years in a row. So obviously, you can talk about Georgia football all you want to. But Fromm, very successful there, had a very successful team around them. I think goes somewhere like New England. That's my guess, or somewhere to learn for a couple of years, and then I think we'll be an NFL starter. But there's a reason why he's not a first round pick. Okay, so Jalen Hurts. So again, another story. Started at Alabama, a freshman. Started from day one all the way back in 2016, and his storyline. And he went to and started that year undefeated, lost to Deshaun Watson in the national championship, almost won a national championship as a freshman, true freshman. And then started the next year, did really well, struggled in that first half, in comes in Tua, boom, is benched. Next year, sits behind Tua, comes in, beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, goes to Oklahoma, puts up really good numbers there, best numbers of his career. And again, since it's a difference in Alabama, who I think is similar to Georgia, who is defensive first minded, Nick Saban is about defense. Kirby Smart is defensive first. Oklahoma, you go to Lincoln Riley, you go air raid that produces Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, 2 Heisman Trophy winners in a row, and you put up big numbers there. I mean, Hurts can run better than any of these quarterbacks, maybe in this draft class. That is certainly possible. But the question is, we don't think he's NFL caliber. Sure, he puts up big numbers in college, has a very successful career. So again, I think it's somebody who is a backup at first and then maybe eventually becomes a starter. Or, here's another example. Dak Prescott, 4th round pick. Similar situation to what Hurts might be. Thrown in, very successful NFL quarterback, is about to make mega money. Is it possible that Hurts is thrown into that situation and becomes the next Dak Prescott? Or is he simply not ready? I don't know. So you never know. There are quarterbacks that are thrown into the fire, like Dak Prescott, who could have been his only opportunity to be a starter in the NFL and made the absolute most of it. That could happen, especially if you're drafted by a team that has the potential to be good, like what the Dallas Cowboys were under Tony Romo. So for Hurts, we'll see where he goes. I think they're all kind of in the same boat. I think they're all going in the 3rd round. So notable receivers that have yet to be taken. So there's Denzel Mims from Baylor, 6'3", 207. We thought he'd go in the 1st round. Laviska Shenault from Colorado, 6'1", 227. Michael Pittman from USC. And there's T. Higgins from Clemson. So kind of the best remaining receivers. So again, these are like the 10 best receivers in this draft class. Very, very deep. All of them, I heard, could have gone. I think there was 10 receivers that could have been in this 1st round of the NFL draft. And obviously, I think there was about 7. So again, all could go in the 1st round. They could go to places like the Jets, who passed on a receiver. Go to places like Green Bay, who passed on a receiver. Maybe go somewhere like Miami, give Tua more help. I don't know. Things like that. So these are all just guesses. Best linebacker remaining, Zach Braun. Thought we might go in the 1st round, did not. Dropped. Again, it's kind of interesting about him is I heard he put up large edge rushing numbers. I think had 13 sacks or something, but they say he's not going to be an edge rusher in the NFL. Will be more of a, from basic football terms, more of a tackling linebacker, will make plays, will not be an edge rusher, will be more of a inside linebacker or whatever, or 4-3. So again, in a 4-3 would be the linebackers or whatever. Or in a 3-4 would not. The point is he's not going to be an edge rusher. That's what they thought he might be in college. So those are the receivers. If someone's looking for linebacker help, I think they'll go to Braun. So again, these are 20 guys right now. 19 guys are listed, almost all of them. And by the way, Cole Kmet from Notre Dame, 6'6", 262 is a tight end. Last year, I think he had 2 tight ends from Iowa in the 1st round. Spencer Horkelson and TJ. I don't know. I'm blanking on their names, but one went to Detroit. Noah Fant, TJ Horkelson and Noah Fant, all went in the first round. Including I think even the top 10. This year's tight end class isn't as strong. There's no great tight ends. I think both tight ends will either go in the second or third round. So again, there are a lot. So I've listed 18 players right now who could have gone in the first round. Others that we will see today be drafted today in the second round. I think a lot of running backs will fly. We've had just one running back so far. I think we'll have 3 pretty quickly in the second round. I would certainly think so. So a lot of these guys I just mentioned will probably go in the second round. Some maybe in the third. There are a lot of receivers still left available. That teams that passed on a receiver will go ahead and take a receiver, like Green Bay, like New York, maybe Miami, I don't know. And then teams that are looking for a backup quarterback right now, we're looking to develop somebody for the future. That is not a play now quarterback. Like what we know Burrow is, what we think Tua is, and maybe Herbert. These are more backups. So again, I talked about this draft for 80 minutes. I did not think I'd go that long, but I ended up doing that. So again, do I want to do this again next year? With next year, I normally wouldn't have done this. I don't know if I'll have the time to do it next year. But I was glad to do this. This is an experimental run. I might do it next year, because of all the other sports going on. Maybe I can start prepping for the draft. February, March, just doing little chunks, and then when it's all ready to begin, I'm ready to go. From reading the scouting report, so we'll see. We'll see if I'll do this again next year. But again, next year should be normal sports. At least what I hope should be. I hope I can talk about the Capitals next April as normal. I hope I can talk about the Nationals as normal, and Major League Baseball for that matter, and maybe bits and pieces of the NBA playoffs. I hope everything's normal next year, come a year from now, but from where we're going, there's no guarantee of that. So again, that's the NFL draft. Second and third round is tonight. I might do a video tomorrow on the picks that I talked about today. Tomorrow, I don't know yet. I'm thinking about it. And then on Saturday we have we have rounds 4 through 7. I don't know. I don't think I'll talk about that. I think I'll really go into the second or third round, kind of top into the draft. So again, I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna watch all the draft tonight, and I think I'll watch bits and pieces of tomorrow. I'll probably watch rounds 4 and 5. So who knows what I'm doing? But again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. This is Burke Lyle Sports Talk.